My job is to think forward, 7 chess moves ahead, but also not ask my team to do things that should be 7 chess moves ahead, not 1.
Great businesses don't spring up out of nowhere. It takes grit, perseverance, personal growth, and failure to reach the status of an iconic local business. Welcome back to Season 6 of the Building Bellingham podcast, where we're bringing you 8 more stories of local leaders and how they are building Bellingham.
Cool. We'll start off with a toast. We have some awesome Doc Swinson's whiskey here.
Yes, we do.
And it just happens, Mr. Brad Barron, to be a 7-year-old Golden Hour limited edition rye, rum, and port that we're going to be sipping on today while we have our conversation. And you happen to have been at Barron for 7 years.
It was like this bourbon was meant to be sipped today. So,
well, cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for having me.
Episode 1, Season 6. We're back in the studio, and we're here with Brad Barron, HEAP, heating, electrical, AC, and Plumbing. There we go. We're back in the studio. The name Barron is very deep-rooted in this community from a community perspective, a giving perspective, a support perspective. I mean, you guys are providing services and replacement for really important pieces of people's houses and their lifestyle. How did you get into this? I mean, you've been in Whatcom County for your whole life, right?
Yeah, there was a stint of 10 years where I was not here, and I can share that too.
Yeah.
But I'm born and raised in Bellingham, Washington. So.
Why'd you leave?
School.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
School thing. Okay.
The school thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went to University of Washington.
Yep.
Actually went with my high school sweetheart, Brooke. She's also born and raised in Bellingham. We went down. She's a high school science teacher. Yeah. I went the engineering route. After we graduated in 2011, we were still sort of in the bottom of the Great Recession, so not a lot of jobs up in the Bellingham area. So we made a decision to stick around down there, find jobs. I was blessed to be one of 3 people the engineering firm I worked for hired that year, and spent 4 years doing professional engineering work, and then spent another 4-ish years doing engineering management for a manufacturer. So I traveled all over Washington, Idaho, Montana, Alaska. Beautiful spots, but I was on the road a lot, like 3 weeks every month. And in 2017, my dad, I guess it was actually just prior to 2017, 2016, we were talking, and he said his business partner of 20 years was going to be retiring. He was going to retire in 2018, and did I have any interest in the family business? Yeah. So up until that point, I had been doing engineering for a long time, and we had some conversations, and in 2017, made the decision, February 6th of 2017, to dive into Barron. And at that time, it had been around for 45 years.
1972, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Was there a part of you that kind of wanted to rebel against getting into the family business at some point? Like, you have this great opportunity. It's a great company. It's huge in Whatcom County and all over the, up and down the I-5 corridor, right? Yeah. Was there a part of you that said, I want to do it on my own. I want to figure this out on my own. I don't want to just jump into this? Yeah.
I have a younger brother. His name's Tim. He's 2.5 years my junior. My parents were very adamant that they did not want us to go into the family business, not because I don't think we were capable or could have been able to be successful there, but because of the fact that they wanted us to do our own thing. The neat part is that was pretty aligned with my thought process. I didn't really have an interest, not because I didn't enjoy watching Barron grow as a young kid, watching my grandfather grow it, and then my dad grow it as he took over in the late 90s, but because of the fact that I had other interests. At least I thought I had other interests. I like problem solving. I like building things. I was always the kid that was in the neighborhood helping build the next tree fort at the end of the block, or a bridge over a creek, or whatever it was. That was what I liked to do, and so I wanted to get into engineering. For those who are from the area and went to school, I had a really influential teacher, a science teacher named Mr. Dowd, Alan Dowd, who was in physics, that really inspired me to get out and lean into my problem-solving passion, and engineering seemed like a great way to do it. And I actually chose the civil engineering route, which is even more not related to HVAC, electrical, plumbing. And I did it because I like being outside. So the Northwest makes a lot of sense for my wife and I to live, because we love being outside, hiking, skiing, biking, kayaking, boating, whatever the case may be. One of the things that actually inspired our Barron Cares Volkswagen camper logo, I have a Volkswagen camper. I like being outside. And civil engineering was a way to be outside, and I love to do that. And so, long story short, your question, I didn't necessarily rebel against going into the business. I wasn't pushed that direction, and I didn't really lean into it when I was younger. It wasn't until I realized that you can take a lot of what you've done as an engineer and apply that to business. Because at the end of the day, and you know this, business is problem solving for your employees first, and then your clients after that. Because if your employees aren't successful, there's no way your clients are going to be successful. So at the end of the day, we're problem solvers, right? And we want to do that to help our clients achieve their dreams.
That's interesting, the whole concept of succeeding through others. And I think a lot of business owners say that, but then actions are differently, right? They're so focused on the customer, which is great, but in order to grow something like you have, or your family has, you have to find the right people, treat them really well, set them up for success. And there's a lot more that we'll get into as far as the tech school, just all of the programs that you've created, investing back into your people, because then it kind of emanates out into your clients, right? Or their clients, right?
Couldn't agree more.
You're in this civil engineering position. Was that here locally?
Down in Seattle.
Okay.
Yeah,
Was that messy? A little bit?
Yeah, I mean, you're dealing with stormwater, sanitary sewer, dirt, asphalt, concrete. I leaned more into the water quality and environmental side of civil, so my degree is technically civil and environmental engineering, and I really liked the environmental side on water quality projects when I was in the engineering space. And then even when I was a manufacturing rep as an engineering manager, same thing. We were selling a lot of water quality products, retention, detention, that helped with water quality. That actually led into one of the reasons why at Barron we chose to grow solar as part of our electrical. As I've a big belief that as a person, as a human, as a business, we need to be environmental stewards, right? And we actually put solar on our building in Ferndale, our main corporate headquarters.
I drive by it regularly. I see it.
You can see it.
Oh, yeah.
So
was that on purpose that you can see it?
Yes.
Okay,
well,
good.
the first arrays that we set up, though, were in the back building. So we have 375 solar panels on our back building. So we produce more electricity now than we use. So we are 100% net zero. We did an LED lighting overhaul. Really wanted to practice what we preached. And again, it's easy to get into something in business if you're passionate about it and you believe in it. And so my upbringing in engineering, being a civil and environmental engineer, just led really naturally into being a renewable energy contractor. And it's been a huge part of who we are and what we do at Barron.
Whatcom County is a very interesting place.
Yeah.
It's a very awesome place. It's a very small business-centric, relationship-based, still has the small town vibe, even as it's grown. But it almost seems like you're the front runner in this idea that, like, we're in this industry, the trades industry. There are a lot of people that might be doing the same thing, but it seems like you're a front runner in this concept of, like, we can do this industry, but we can also do it in a net zero. What kind of feedback do you get from, like, your specific industry, the trades industry, on that?
We've been pretty early adopters of technology that has been green. Like, as an example, ductless heat pumps or mini splits has been a part of our portfolio that we've offered customers since probably the beginning of when they were popular in the United States. So, and this predates me, so I can't take the credit for that lean in. My dad, John, saw the movement toward heat pump technology and the benefits it provides, not only from a customer standpoint of being less costly to run, providing both heating and cooling, but also the fact that it is an environmentally friendly product. We've always leaned into that type of technology. And the merriment of when you take heat pumps and then you take solar as an example and bring them together, a lot of clients and customers of ours go, oh, like, that makes a lot of sense. We can do a lot of things to take care of our home and our family, but then ultimately take care of our community and the environment. It seems to work for us. Our clients like it, and we're going to continue to ask them what they're looking for and lean into technology and the innovation that's happening right now. Because a lot of people don't realize that an HVAC system can actually take in as much as 40 to 60% of your energy that you're consuming in your home, right? It's utilizing a lot of energy. Water heating is the second behind that at 20+%. Theoretically speaking, 80% of the power your house consumes could be done through the HVAC systems and the water heating systems. When you're looking at a house and where to invest to get maximum return on investment for those dollars spent, those are two good places to start. And if you can do it in a way that helps the community and the environment, then that's a win. And we've leaned into that at Barron. We believe strongly in that.
And that's not cheap. So from the perspective of big picture impact, and the perspective of your bottom line, right? You have to look at both of those things. But your family and you've been big picture thinkers about that, because it's usually this huge upfront cost or this upfront pain and suffering or whatever the thing is to get to this long-term, bigger picture betterment, right? Yeah. That's kind of the mantra, right?
Sure.
We keep telling ourselves that, right?
Yes.
So how do you navigate that? How do you go, okay, we have to make sure that we're still profitable.
Yeah.
We have to make sure we can still pay everybody, but we're going to invest. How do you make those big decisions on like, this is going to cost us a chunk of change, but I think in 5 years, this is going to really pay off. And here's like, how do you look at that and go, this is probably a good idea to do this right now, even if it's the right thing to do?
Well, going back to my grandpa Dan, who founded the company with my grandma Vivian, they've been all about reinvesting to grow, right? And so in order to grow a business, you have to be willing to invest dollars back into it. So, at the end of the day, my philosophy has always been, and my dad's has that, and my grandpa had that too, to take profits at the end of the year, whatever that ends up being, if it's a good year or a bad year, and then reinvest it back into things like technology or really first and foremost people, right? How do we equip them to be successful to deploy the technology that our clients are asking for and are looking for? So you can't grow without investment and reinvestment. And I think that when companies realize that, they sort of reach that next level of growth. You need resources to fuel growth, but you have to make that investment. At the end of the day, John Barron and I aren't taking the money out of the company and going and buying mansions across the United States or in, Hawaii or whatever. It's reinvest back into people. And I think it's Zig Ziglar's quote. It says, you can achieve or get anything you want in life as long as you can help other people, a lot of other people get those things as well. And so from a leadership standpoint, when we invest in our people, Barron ultimately succeeds. And we have something that we call the 4 C's of caring at Barron, which means when we look at anything that we do, it always starts with the coworker first. So that's our first C. So we invest in our coworker. And then they, because we've invested in them, can then invest in our customers, right? And it has to go that way. I've been told before that you probably shouldn't say that on air or on a podcast like this or on the radio, but I have no shame in saying that because I want my customers and clients to know that, no, we take care of our teammates. They're paid, I believe, best in industry. They have a good benefits package. They are trained religiously throughout the year to be the best they can possibly be. But then when you take care of your coworkers and customers, then the community is taken care of, right? Because you have a great workforce that is bringing home awesome wages to their families that can then reinvest. You have customers ultimately that have peace of mind in their home or business that they're going to be taken care of from a heating, cooling, electrical, plumbing standpoint. And then the community is going to thrive, right? Because both of those people are taken care of. When that's all met, company wins. Companies last, always in our thought process, because if you do those things in that order, your company's going to prosper.
Wow. It's hard to think that way because you're thinking about your own family, right?
Sure.
And that's something as a leader that is part of what you're thinking about, but part of your family is your company, your people. Really powerful to think of it that way. And it clearly shows because you guys have grown over the years and continue. We'll talk more about the future. 7 years ago. The age of this whiskey.
The age of that whiskey,
You made a decision or were approached by your dad about joining the company. Tell me more about, where did you start?
I started without a title. We had an idea of what I wanted to do, and I say that it's just, I mean an official business title. I came in with the idea that I wanted to learn the company. So I started in the fabrication shop. I spent 6 weeks trying not to lose my fingers, right? Working on sheet metal and doing fabrication, but with an intent of understanding that process, because at the core of what HVAC is, whether it's residential or commercial, majority of systems in this area are ducted systems, right? So they have ductwork. More movement, as we've talked about earlier, towards ductless heat pumps and heat pump technology, but still the existing infrastructure when you're doing a retrofit project is ductwork. So I wanted to understand that side of our business. We have 10,000 square foot sheet metal shop that produces a lot of sheet metal for our HVAC electrical plumbing groups, but primarily our HVAC side of the business. And then I moved into service because at the end of the day, as a contractor in the trades, service is the cornerstone of success. You have to be able to run a successful service business. And service is incredibly challenging. It's a very difficult business to be in, especially when you have to go out to clients' homes or businesses, right? It's not like they're coming to us and we can do, 6 to 10 jobs in a day. We're able to get to 4 to 5 maybe, and that's if we are as efficient and as effective as possible.
Sure.
So I wanted to understand that animal because most HVAC electrical plumbing companies lose money in service. It is a loss leader for them. They don't make money.
Why is that?
It's because it's that inefficient. About 50% of your time is spent not being billable. Like you can't bill that time. You're traveling or you're waiting or you're writing up a proposal or quote or whatever it is. And we don't bill the customers for that time. We're billing the customer for the time they're at the house. So to be able to figure out and run a business that's successful requires a profitable service department. Now, it doesn't have to make a lot of money, but it needs to be able to make sure that it can produce something toward the bottom line so that the rest of the company can be successful. So I wanted to learn and understand the service side of the business next. And then I actually jumped into the retrofit group, which is our sort of bread and butter, which is going out and doing existing home and building replacement, understanding that. Did a lot of ride-alongs with different crews, understanding that side of the business. And all along, as I've went through all those different areas, because I went to commercial next, I wanted to be able to see how we could improve Barron. And so eventually, my dad and I decided that my title was business development manager. So I was helping develop the business and increase efficiencies, increase effectiveness, and then took all of those learnings and then moved into the director of operations role.
What were some of the most memorable things that you noticed in an already highly functioning company? What were some of your first things, and what was that conversation like with your dad where you go, hey, this thing's not working well? Yeah, I mean, obviously you guys have that personal relationship, but you're in a business setting.
Yep.
And this is his baby. It was your grandpa's baby.
Yeah.
Or grandparents' baby.
Yeah, and my great-grandpa actually worked out of returement for 3 years in the sheet metal shop for my grandpa.
They roped him back in, huh?
I'm technically a fourth-generation Barron working in the business.
So you guys have the personal relationship, but also he's been in it.
Yeah.
And you're you're working your way through these different avenues of the business.
Well, my dad, John, and I, we have a really good relationship. We're very blessed in that area. We can be very transparent with one another. I think we have immense respect for one another. So being able to share those things, it was never something that I shied away from. I felt like, if anything, it was going to help him and help me and help our family and the teammates be able to prosper by being willing to share. And there were things that we weren't doing right. When I came in, we had a lot of systems and processes that were known by individuals that have been doing it a long time, but weren't documented, right?
That's a problem.
It's very difficult to scale a business if you don't have documented processes. I think actually, if you look at, I think there's a book that talks about the 7 levels of business scaling, right? Number 2 is process, right? You got to have your processes.
Yeah.
And while we had some, there was a lot of tribal knowledge, very common in the trades to have that, or in construction businesses.
Some guy that's been there for 30 years, that's done it a million times. He can he can sort of explain it to you, but he can do it better.
100%. Yeah. And so that was, I think, probably one of the biggest glaring holes, right? Or gaps. We call them gaps at Barron, was, okay, we need to get into documenting our processes. And we still have room to grow there because technology is evolving so fast, and team members are, we're adding team members quickly, and there's gaps that are created through growth, right? And so we're constantly working at that, and that's something that we're never going to stop doing. But that was a big area, and it was difficult. It was a culture shift for people to go from no, I don't need to write that down. And I'm like, well, imagine you times 4, and those 3 other people, they don't know what you do. How do they do your job?
Yeah.
Right?
Can we just put your brain on a table, please?
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have that technology.
Yeah.
The plug in and download.
Whatever.
Who knows?
Scan the brain.
At the end of the day, being able to talk with him about that never was something that was challenging or scary. He accepted it and said, yeah, let's get after it. Let's be a process-driven company. I think it was the beginning of my 2nd year there. I had gone through and seen all the different roles at Barron, and I decided that I wanted to write role descriptions for every position in the company because we didn't have them. If someone doesn't know what their expectations are, what key KPIs, key performance indicators they should be hitting, how are they going to be successful? But really, how are they going to grow, right? Or how do they know what the next level looks like? What is that position? And so I think I spent 3 months writing 100+ role descriptions, right? Yeah. And I wasn't working those roles. So I had to interview people, ask them, what do you do? What are your top 5 things that you do? And that was humbling to be able to go through that. But I learned a lot about our company, and again, more gaps as a result of that. I'm like, I think we need this role here because no one's doing that. Or people think they're doing that.
Or 3 people are sharing one thing. Yeah.
That was a big one. Another one, and it sort of dovetailed into why we started our own school at Barron, was the fact that we did not see enough people coming out of the technical colleges and into the trades to satisfy demand. This was exacerbated during the pandemic. While a lot of companies struggled immensely, some don't exist anymore today because of that. It was a very challenging time for the United States. About 3 months into that lockdown, right, all of a sudden, Barron was an essential service, right? Everything that we did was essential, and people were stuck in their houses. And we went from maybe a call volume of, 1,000 calls in a week, right, in our service group.
Just 1,000?
Just 1,000, right?
Pump those numbers up, Brad. Come on.
2,500 to 3,000 calls in a week,
right?
My God. And we could not scale the level of the number of technicians that we needed fast enough. And I've had a lot of reflection during that time. That was a time where we let some of our customers down. And I'm fine sharing that because we were not able to meet the demand because we didn't expect to go from 1,000 calls a week to 2,500 to 3,000 calls a week. It was really challenging. But the school helped. Since then, we've graduated 30 technicians that we have paid and trained in-house.
That's awesome.
To help service residential customers and commercial customers. And we're in a position like we've never been in. And the pandemic helped us move in that direction. We had a roadmap for where we wanted to go. We knew we needed to train our own technicians, but that was just glaring. It provided just a spotlight on why that need is there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've heard the stat, but it's real. For every 5 baby boomers retiring, only 1 millennial or Gen Zer is entering the trades. So 5 out, 1 in.
Whoa.
And that's challenging.
And they're also leaving with the guys and gals that have the roadmap in their head of how the positions get. They're also getting out.
So if, God forbid, a company hasn't documented their processes and those people have left, then who's going to rewrite it?
Yeah.
And my dad is one of those people. My dad's looking to probably retire in the next few years, and he's got a lot of knowledge. And in the last 7 years, I've been downloading as much as that knowledge. Again, I don't have the plug. I can't do that. But trying to download
Matrix.
it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, I learned jujitsu or whatever. I don't know jujitsu, but trying to learn as fast as I can, knowing that horizon that will ultimately end, it will sunset.
Yeah.
And that's happening all over the trades. And even for industries like yourself in real estate, helping clients buy homes is going to be an exciting opportunity for these new generations. But then they're going to own those homes, and they're going to rely on trades companies like ours to do their HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and we need to be ready with the technicians, the electricians, plumbers to take care of their houses. That biggest investment they probably make in their entire life, right? You probably know that stat better than I do, but I'm assuming a home's a pretty darn big one. So,
pretty big one, yeah.
Yeah.
How important when you're creating culture is language?
Huge. Yeah, I mean, everything from our core values. So we have our core values posted all over the campuses that we operate. They're in all of our trucks. We talk about them in every single company meeting. And within those core values, it's not just 5 words. We have 4 or 5 bullet points underneath of every one of those that is specific to how we talk and the language that we use. Within the trades, there's trades language, obviously, but then within a company, there's cultural language that's used. For example, we talk about improving lives of our team members through the 5 capitals, right? So we want to focus on things like spiritual capital, which to some is a relationship with God, but really in the higher level, it is purpose. Why does someone exist? And if you can't help a teammate grow that spiritual capital, that purpose, that why, they're probably not going to be as successful as they could be, or God forbid, as happy as they could be, and not as engaged as they could be. And then relational capital is the second, right? We want to make sure that we build relationships. And so capital, as an example, is words we use. It might be used differently somewhere else, but at Barron, right, it's about how we improve our team members' lives. That first C, the coworker C. And then obviously on the, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, customer side, we're looking at comfort, health, and energy, what we call our 3 pillars. So if I didn't tell you that was our 3 pillars and you weren't part of Barron, you go, what does that mean?
Yeah.
We know what that means, and that's part of our beating drum of how we service customers. It's always through that lens. Are we improving their comfort? Are we improving their health? And are we improving either their home or building's energy efficiency? So long story short, super important. It impacts how you talk with customers too, because culture internally is one thing, but how it goes out into the community is huge.
Well, it's really powerful, and it kind of leads me to my next question, which is around when you start something, when you take over something, when you own something, and when you work for that entity. Have you ever heard nobody can ever care about what you care about as much as you do?
Yeah.
And knowing that the people that work for you care about where they work, but they also care probably more about their families, as they should. How do you transfer that as a leader?
Multi-part answer. One is leaning into spiritual capital and purpose and why, right? If people are in an organization and they believe that what they're doing matters, they're going to be a lot more invested than if they don't believe what they're doing matters. And so right person, right seat, right? Always looking at that and talking about that. We have quarterly reviews where the biggest part of our review is talking to them about, are you enjoying what you're doing? What are the areas of training you need? Do you believe that what you're doing is truly improving your coworkers and your customers' lives? And if not, how can we help you get there? So that's part of it. And from a business side of things, money matters too. So we have incentive programs from our managers all the way down to folks in the field on, performance and making sure that what they do and doing it right the first time impacts how they're compensated. And I think alignment of culture with compensation is incredibly important. Barron is our family's baby, right? But we want people to feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. And understanding how to tap into and grow their spiritual capital is so important.
Spiritual capital is important.
Yeah.
And relational capital. I've heard that before.
Yeah.
I think Bob Pritchett talked about that
Yeah.
when he came on in season 2.
People also want to work with their friends, right? Yeah. That doesn't mean you're going to be friends with everyone you work with, but man, it's a lot more fun to think of someone else as a friend, as a coworker.
Way more fun,
yeah. We spend a lot of time with people at work, as we all know.
Building Bellingham is a community production of the Bellingham Real Estate Company. We are an independent real estate firm located on Meridian Street. From our data-centric approach to a heavy investment in media and collaboration, we do real estate differently in Whatcom County. Check out BHAM-RECO reviews on Google, Zillow, and RateMyAgent.com, and don't hesitate to reach out with any questions.
You guys have 250 employees at this point?
No, but thank you. That's a nice, no, we have 175 to 200, depending
That's
on the
a lot
season.
of people. Yeah. Okay, it was a wild stab in the dark.
No, you're pretty close.
That's pretty close.
Upwards of 200 employees, depending on the time of the year.
Not everybody fits the culture, right? We're talking about all the positive parts of it, and you can set the most positive environment you can, but it doesn't always work out. Tell me a little bit more about, in your role now as CEO, like, it's almost disappointing because you see the best in somebody.
Yeah.
They step into the role, they don't do what they say they're going to do, or maybe you let them down. It happens. We're human.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not pointing the finger. I'm just saying I know that as a business owner.
I'm humble enough to say I've made plenty of mistakes.
How do you deal with those crunchy, just negative? They're sad moments.
Yeah.
Because you want to see people be successful.
People are a company's greatest asset, right? And you need to be able to treat them as such, but it doesn't always work. I've found that being very direct, there's different ways of saying this, but the phrase clear is kind is, I think it resonates with me, and having those conversations, that's why we have quarterly reviews too. It's not just a one-way street. We both have those conversations. You got to have them. You just got to have them. And then you got to realize that people are human, with the exception of a few and this happens just like, wow, like we should not have hired that person. Doesn't happen very often. There have been times where, though, we've realized, this company maybe isn't the right fit for you. Without exception, we are helping them find the right fit, assuming they're willing to work with us. And I've had that happen, at the intro levels to the company. It probably happens more frequently there. Someone gets into the trades and maybe they didn't realize what that meant. Yeah. Yes, you do have to go into attics and crawl spaces, and there are bugs and rats and different things like that.
Oh, people quit because of that?
Yes. No. Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Or I have to get on roofs and different things like that. And so those are a little bit easier, but I've had to have conversations about things not working at the executive level, and that is very difficult and challenging and heart-wrenching. It's never about the person in those situations. It's typically about the fit.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just doesn't work. At Barron, my philosophy has always been help that person regardless of if they're on the team or not.
Yeah.
And I would say very rarely does anyone at Barron ever, they're no longer on the team, goes, I didn't see that coming. We're going to have conversations, and usually it's a combined effort to say, hey, this isn't working. Most of the time we can actually find a different scene on the bus at Barron. It's like, hey, like you're cultural. Yeah. Like we went through the recruiting process, you're a cultural fit, but this particular seat doesn't really work. And have you thought about that? Right. Yeah. And then we have that conversation, and that conversation is productive. They feel supported and encouraged, and it ends up being a huge blessing to them and the team that they end up supporting. So that always exists, though. People are messy, right? We're human. We're fallible. And as a result of being human, we're not perfect. Yeah. And we're messy. And that's part of business. But it's also the beautiful part of business, too, because it's what makes it great.
So let's talk about the peaceful pass-off of power.
Sure.
Yeah. Right? Peaceful?
Yeah. Peaceful, yeah.
There wasn't any jujitsu in there?
No jujitsu.
Yeah. Tell me about how that conversation came to be between you and your dad and the executive team.
Well, it was a difficult one, so I should probably have some more ducks.
Want some? Cool.
No, I'm good. I have some here. I was just joking.
Okay. All right, well.
But I'm going to take another sip because it is darn good. I think it's been aged 7 years, is what I've heard, as long as I've been at Barron.
7.5 years.
Okay, 7.5.
They lied on the bottle. Sorry, Jesse.
It's delicious. Yeah. By the way, thanks again for having me.
Yeah, cheers.
It's just deliciousness. It's perfect.
The coolest part about what Jesse told me was, I said, okay, what do you think the flavors are? And he's like, no, I'm going to flip it on you because I want to know what your flavors are. I'm like, well, I'm a caveman, so my flavors are going to be like, it tastes like really good whiskey.
Yeah.
And he's like, cool. That's all you need to say. Don't feel like. So when did this conversation come to pass? Yeah, you were in your director of operations.
I was a COO at the time.
COO at the time, okay. Yep. Were you wanting to push for a different position, or was it hey, I think you should be in a different position? Was it That's
an interesting question. So, and before I answer it, I'll say, I so often get asked, are you ready for your dad to retire? Like, are you ready to just take over as owner and buy him out? And my answer surprises everyone when I say no. Not because I don't feel like I'm capable, but because I truly and genuinely enjoy working with my father and know there will be a day where he won't be at Barron anymore, and I'm going to miss that. Yeah. So I've never ever pushed to be in a particular role. My dad, in the August of 2022, came to me and he said, hey, I want to talk to you about something. So we had a closed door meeting, and I'm like, oh, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, I'm not having as much fun as I used to have. The company has grown a lot, grown to a point where I'm not familiar with what's going on. I haven't done as much of the due diligence and research into how to run a company that's 200 employees. And I know that you've been in it, studying, reaching out to mentors and different folks in the larger trades community across the U.S. What do you think if I step back, you step into the CEO role, and I focused on coaching, in particular coaching salespeople? Because he's like, because that's what I love and that's what I want to do for the last few years before I retire. I looked at him and I said, well, wow, thank you. Yeah. I don't know if I'm ready yet. And my dad reassured me. He said, I think you are. And I said that I'd like to think about it. And so in some quiet time and prayer time, I went out and reached out to a previous boss of mine and found out that he was actually an executive coach. And I thought, this is a great opportunity if I'm going to step into a CEO role of getting a third party perspective of someone that can challenge me and push me, that's not in the business, that's not my dad, and help me grow and help Barron grow as a result of that. So I reached out, got an executive coach, and then at the beginning of 2023 took over as CEO. But to answer your question, long story short, never a conversation from me to him of, get off the throne, John, or whatever, yeah. Right? It was...
You'd probably say it jokingly over a glass of whiskey.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And John and I, yeah, exactly. Some Game of Thrones shit. But... and Doc Swanson said it's a good way to do it. It's a good way to do it. But I will say that it was him coming to me like that is exactly why I consider him one of my mentors. Yeah. Is his ability to humble himself and say, I'm not having as much fun. I don't think I'm going to be as effective in this next section of time that Barron's going to be going through growth and all that. And I believe in you and want you to do it. Yeah. And it was humbling for me too.
So one of the things that I've experienced, and I'm sure you have it as well, especially stepping into every new role being this like new thing, the whole conversation around imposter syndrome. So I think it's important to talk about it with that moment with your dad.
Sure.
Where he's like, I think you're ready. And you're like, I think I need a coach.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible to think that way. I think a lot of people would go, hell yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah.
To say, I super appreciate this. I'm a little bit like nervous about it because I want to make sure that I truly have like dug deep and really made sure that I'm ready for this because it's a big role. What's imposter syndrome like for you? Stepping into that role, knowing that you've been in every position in the company.
All of those things you feel in a moment like that, to your point, are you ready? Do I think I can do as good of a job? Am I going to fail or let my dad down? God forbid I got to fail and let 175 to 200 people down. One thing that I've taken a lot of confidence in is the leadership team at Barron that we've built. And you can't run a business by yourself. I strongly believe in that flat organizations are more nimble and allow opportunities for people to be able to share and be autonomous. And so back when I was the COO, I had actually proposed to John that we flatten the organization. While we still had officers at the company, every officer was still managing a particular division. So they were in a facet of the company to understand what was going on, what was happening in the trenches. And we've kept that same strategy to this day. My current COO is functioning as the director of sales and marketing because I want him to be in the business. My current CFO is functioning as the controller as well. I want him to be in the business working with our accounting team. While they're still providing strategy, they also then can provide me and the rest of our 8-person executive team and 20-person leadership team good data, good insights into how to be successful. And so I'm very blessed to have a team that's very capable, that cares immensely about the teams that they support. And I think that helped me not be as concerned about whether it be failure or falling short of my dad's expectations or the client's expectations or whatever. We're all going to do those things. Yeah. But if you have a team that can come around you and support you, you're going to be okay. And you're going to make good decisions. And they're not always going to be good. And then you make good ones after you make a bad one and you move forward and have that mentality. So I like to lead in a way that empowers our team members, in particular our leaders to be leaders and not to micromanage. And I've never been a micromanager. I'm an I-dotted T's crossed guy, but not in a micromanaging sense. Just like I want my processes documented. I want to know who's doing what and what they're accountable for. I want to make sure we get feedback on how clients are experiencing our services and that be able to correct them when we fall short.
Thoroughness.
Absolutely. Yeah. So felt all those feelings, but also took confidence the team that my dad helped me be able to build and leaned into those, those wise people around me, some of which they may be below me from a corporate ranking, but they're still people I lean into for mentorship and guidance because I don't know everything.
They're in it.
I'm not an expert in everything.
I actually am.
Yeah, I know.
I'm an expert in everything. So.
Yeah, cheers to being an expert in everything. Yeah. Absolutely.
Master of nothing.
Yeah, and the most humble person I've ever met. So
I've found over time, and my team will make fun of me because I'm very long-winded, but I also, Tiffany's laughing right now, but it's been really interesting to see as they've grown, as our leadership team has grown and everybody has grown within the company, I'm talking and saying less because they are taking ownership over those situations and meetings and I'm there and there less because they are totally crushing it.
And they're nodding their heads right now, which is a good thing, right?
They're still nodding their heads about me being long-winded.
The camera's not pointing that direction, but they're genuinely going, yeah. And that's awesome to hear. Then you find people around you, to your point, that can fill in your gap, right? Yep. And then they make your company better.
Yeah, I've got a lot. That's why a lot of people work here, because I've got a lot of gaps. That's just a lot.
I've never thought about it that way, but that must be why I have a 20-person leadership team. I have like 20 gaps, right?
There's probably space for more.
Yeah.
While we're on this topic, Brad, since you've been CEO, there's a lot of things that we have on our list that are like the proactive things, right? And I think we can talk a lot about this because I have probably the same feeling, but we have all these things that are like very proactive, like this would be great to do this thing. Like the trade school is a good example of something that is proactive, but probably took a lot of time to be like, okay, let's rip the Band-Aid off and just do this thing.
Yeah, and 18 months of building it.
And 18 months of building it. How much of your time do you feel like now as CEO is proactivity and how much do you feel like is reactivity?
Well, that's a good question. I think the transition, it's definitely more proactivity. I think when I was in the COO role, and by the way, for any COOs out there, I think that is one of the hardest positions in a company to run. And I'm not saying that because I was in it. I look at my current COO, Merrill. It is a very challenging. Honestly, it is very challenging because you are required to be both a visionary, a strategic visionary, and be able to triage and be reactive because unfortunately, the day-to-day is in real time, right? You know what I mean? Like, as much as we like to look to the future, the COO is responsible for what's happening that minute, that hour, that day, that week, that month, that quarter, that year, right? Like they're in it. So there was definitely a transition, and I'm a doer, right? I'm a roll up my sleeves and do it. That's why I got into engineering. It has been a hard transition for me to go from being like someone that likes to be in the trenches to now like, no. My job is to think forward, 7 chess moves ahead, but also not ask my team to do things that should be 7 chess moves ahead, not 1. Because I like to get stuff done and I like to do it quickly. And so that has also been a learning on my part is at the beginning, I'd say the first 6 months, I remember my COO, my CFO, Marilyn Patrick coming and pulled me in and I said, hey, Brad, you have really good ideas, but you are going to burn everyone out if you want us to do all those ideas now. And I'm like, first off, thank you for having the willingness to tell me that. And like, let's focus on 3, right? You know what I mean? And so we backed off and scaled back to that.
You didn't say, let's do 14.
Yeah, as much as I would like to, it was really good. As a result, I think we've actually accomplished more focusing on less. I think that, I don't know where this came from. I've read it in a number of different ways and in a number of different places, but I think that leaders, and that could be a manager, that could be a director, could be an owner, could be whatever, we tend to underestimate how much we can accomplish in 5 years, but overestimate how much we can accomplish in 12 months. So we think that we can get a lot done really quick, but we can't. But also we can get caught in the trap of thinking, well, there's no way we can be there in 5 years, right? I've had to balance that a little bit going, when my teammates come to me and say, we can't do all this, we're going to burn out. I go, okay, how about year 3? How does that sound for that? And they're like, yeah, we can totally do that. That seems like that makes a lot of sense. So balancing that as being a doer. Like, I feel like actually when I was in the COO role, I really liked it because I was good at it. I was able to cast vision, but also like, let's go, let's figure out the day-to-day, like let's go to war, let's battle, right? Yep. But as CEO, I had to be like, pause. I can't ask my team to do that much.
I do want to pivot to family.
Please.
Because you have a family.
I do.
You have kids.
I do.
I also have a 2-year-old. your why probably has a lot to do with them.
It does.
So you have these two worlds. And I'm sure there's like crossover and like, there's company events and like, I'm sure your family is very supportive of what you're doing. It's a family business, it's all of these things, but they're like intertwined in one way and also competing in one way.
Sure.
Tell me about that balance or lack of balance.
It's a really good question. So growing up, my dad, when he took over Barron in 1998 and then helped grow it from that point to a much larger company, he spent a lot of time at work, and I don't begrudge him for that. I mean, there's a lot of time. I mean, he used to say that, in business, it's great. If you're an owner, you get to work half days. You just have to pick which 12 hours you work, which I witnessed, I saw. And going back to the question you had about, that first call John made to me about coming into the family business, one of those discussion points was, I don't want to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like, that is not what I want to do. I'm going to build a team differently and run things differently. Not saying you did it wrong. He is one of the hardest workers that I've ever met in my entire life, and I have a ton of respect for him. Like I said, my dad's a mentor to me, but I did not want that to be the case. So when I went and sought out a executive coach, one of the reasons I picked Corey, my coach, was because he wrote a book called Win at Home First. And in that book, it talks about how leaders cannot be successful if their home life is not successful. Mm-hmm. And it goes into a lot of detail in that. He also wrote a book called Rise and Go, which is another great book about things we've talked about, falling short, not succeeding, and how leaders get back up and they say, all right, like round 2, let's go. Round 3, let's go. There's never a ending round. It's just what's the next round, and, get knocked down, they get back up again. But winning at home first has been incredibly important to me. And this might be different than some other leaders, but I actually believe that integrating your family into the business, not necessarily them working there, but like talking about it, is important. Like, I'll bring my kids to work, not because they're working for me, because I want them to see that, this is what dad does. This is why we do what we do. My wife actually worked in the business for a time. I asked her to do that, not because she necessarily wanted to, but she had a time between when we had twins and when she wanted to go back to teaching, where she said, well, if there's a time to do this, I'll do it. And she actually was a big part of how we got to a Barron Tech School. She was a co-author of all of our 15-week curriculum for our HVAC service program. She has a master's in teaching and curriculum development. While that was a great thing to accomplish, and I have no problem saying she is one of the reasons why we have successfully completed and certificated 30 technicians out of that school, I wanted her to see what my life looked like working in the business. And I didn't want that to be something that was ever hidden from her. I want to be home. Do I work sometimes from 7 to 9 o'clock at night? Yeah. Do I try to make sure that I'm there for dinner and I get to put the kids to bed? Yeah. So I flex my time accordingly because I want to win at home first. Do I make sure that my wife and I at least twice a month go on a us date? Yeah. Yep. Make sure we do that. Even if it's difficult or we're like, man, we don't have time to do that, because those are important things to do. Yep. Having daddy dates with my kids. Like, I make sure at least once a month I take each of them out by themselves to do something.
You said you have twins.
Yeah, so I have 3 kids. I have a 6-year-old who's in 1st grade, and then I have 2 in pre-K 4. So they're 4-year-old twins.
So they're now in the pre-K kids are now in partial daycare, and then the 1st grader is in most of the day.
He's 5 days a week, all day. Yeah, so
it's probably
first year of that. Yeah,
probably bittersweet though, because it's so, and I have a 2-year-old. She's turned 2, and she's not in school.
Congrats,
Thank you. Yeah, she's a toddler. It's very apparent she's a toddler. But
I've had 3 at one point at 2, so I know.
Yeah, you're like, so I can't complain. But I think more so you start to see this balance of you don't want to miss anything, but you also need a break. It's like this weird balance of not wanting to miss moments, but also being all right, that moment can go away.
Yeah.
It's a weird
100%.
balance. Yeah. What point, if there's 6, it was right after you had joined Barron, and then the other kid, the twins
2018.
Yeah, and then you had your twins later on.
Yeah, 2020, pandemic babies.
Yeah. The big balance point is you winning at home is the philosophy.
Yeah.
And you can't do it perfectly.
No.
But you can do your best.
No, 100%. Winning at home, it's got to happen. And I had my entire leadership team read that book. I actually brought him in, and he's done 2 in-person trainings to talk about that, because it's not just about me. My leadership team has to win at home first too. Yeah. Right. And anytime someone comes up to me and says, I've got to, I might have to bug out early. I got a kid's soccer game. I'm like, why are you asking me for permission?
Please go.
Go. You work a lot. You do a great job. Go. Yeah. That is important, because then you can come back recharged, and especially if that's their why. And I think for most parents, that is. Family's important.
Hope so.
Yeah, you'd hope.
Better be.
They chose to have.
I'm saying that to them. It better be.
It better be.
Yeah. Let's cap it off with community, because Barron Cares is a big thing, big part of your company.
It is.
We've met a few times, but seeing how involved, like seeing the brand and seeing you physically present at an event or speaking at or hosting at something and involved in, Whatcom Young Professionals and all of these organizations. Tell me about community and that being a part of your why and your company's why.
It's a really good question. It goes back to looking at our 4 C's of caring, making sure that community is a part of that. I mean, at the end of the day, we live, work, and play in the communities that our businesses are in, right? And so if you can't give back, there's no way that you're going to be a successful company. And I truly believe that. Some might argue against me, but I'd be happy to have some whiskey or bourbon and talk to them.
We're out of whiskey, sorry.
Yeah, it's all gone. Yeah, no more.
Yeah.
Community has to be a part of the fabric, I think, of a successful business's culture. And we've always done a lot at Barron. That goes back to my grandpa believing that when you take care of the community, your business is going to be taken care of. Those 4 C's of caring, while he never articulated them that way, they were always part of the ethos of Barron back in the early 70s at its inception. But long story short, heat pump systems to families in need. We've given furnaces to families in need. We've given to a number of different organizations. And at the end of 2022, and it took a year to get us to this Barron Cares point, I said, hey, I'd like to find a way to involve the community in recommending organizations that do great work in Whatcom County and beyond. I want to channel all of our energy, which our team has, into how does their work impact the community. So we came up with Barron Cares, which is kindness, appreciation, response, empathy, service. Our goal is to raise $10,000 a month for a local charity. And it's not just Barron giving $10,000. It is actually tied to our coworkers' work and our customers engaging with us. So it's based on a system sold, an HVAC electrical plumbing system sold. $110 goes to that charity. So there's tie-in and buy-in, and we don't inflate our costs and to do that. We take it off of our bottom line, and because that's what you do. I actually believe that we should always give from our top line. That's my philosophy. We're a seasonal business. A lot of people don't know this, but at the end of the day, while Barron makes money at the end of a year, there's months we lose money. We still give money every single month to a charity because that is what you do. You give from your top line and you take care of the community. And Barron Cares is a big part of that. And we reached out to the greater Whatcom County community, and we had almost 40 nominations for organizations in need. I mean, that's crazy, 40. And that wasn't everyone that said something. So that shows you the need that's there. And the work that's being done in Whatcom County. I think it's what makes this an amazing place to live, work, and play. We have people that are bought in. I see that through the chamber work, through WIPs. I see that through all of the different people I meet. Got to be invested in the community, and we're never going to stop giving. That's just part of who we are.
Nothing wrong with being a social good capitalist.
Absolutely.
Making money. If the more you have, the more you're able to give, but there should be a mechanism. And I've probably put out 3 or 4 videos that no one cares about that I was in my car, ranting about that every business should have a social good mechanism in it.
Absolutely.
We succeed, everybody else around us succeed.
Yep.
Succeeds to a certain point. So anyways, that's really impactful. That's really cool. And just love what you do for this community. And also, we haven't had a chance to sit down and talk.
Yeah.
We've like crossed paths,
numerous times
at events, but
it's
ultimately,
usually,
hey, what's up, whiskey? Yeah, no.
Exactly.
No, now we know.
That we know.
But just really appreciate what you all do for this community, and I think a lot of people have either been serviced, had something replaced, have had some sort of conversation with your company, and so you're a very important business in this community. Yeah. One final question I have for you.
Sure.
And this is something that we grapple with in our industry and every business grapples with, is the balance of cost and value. You guys are a premium service. When someone says, well, you're more expensive than this person, but less expensive than this person, how do you as a company present that value?
It does vary and differ. It depends on service, equipment type, HVAC, electrical, plumbing. Sometimes we're more, sometimes we're less, sometimes we're right in the middle. One of the things that I like to share with customers, whether they're residential or commercial, is that when we price something, it's based on data, right? So we look at what we need to do. Because I'm an engineer, I'm a very data-driven person. And so we take all of the data. And I believe that we compensate our team members better than anyone else in the industry. And I'm not ashamed to say that, because we want the best people to take care of our customers. And so there's a cost there. We have a good benefits package. We do philanthropic giving. We engage best practices to constantly level up, be better. We want fuel-efficient trucks, or we've started to introduce electric vehicles into our fleet. We want to be an environmental steward. All of those things factor into ultimately what that price point is, right? But at the end of the day, I think the most important thing to note is that when people choose to work for us, us, whether we're higher price or lower price or the same price. We're never going to stop until they're satisfied, like 100% satisfaction guarantee. And that's a bumper sticker phrase a lot of companies use, but we've lived it for 53 years. And you're going to get that every time you work with us. And by the way, we don't always get it right the first time, as anyone does. Guess what? We employ humans. And because of that, they're going to make mistakes. We have a training school where we're sending technicians out after they've gone through an intensive program to learn. Are we charging them more because it takes longer? No, but might they make a mistake? But we're also providing the community with someone that's going to earn 6 figures and be able to provide for their family. And we do that because that's the right thing to do, to grow and invest in the community. So we stand behind what we do, whether it's higher, lower, the same price. You're going to get the best service from us because it doesn't matter if we do it right the first time or not. It's going to be right at the end.
I love that. You have a lot of passion.
Just a little.
What would you pass along to other business owners, have taken over a business or are wanting to start a business? What kind of advice would you give those people?
Yeah, I think say they're starting a business. Let's start there, or just getting going. Develop your mission and vision statement. Figure out why you exist and believe it. Don't just have it be a bumper sticker. Like, engage your team members. Talk to them about why you exist. That goes back to spiritual capital, right? Then establish your core values. Like, what are your hiring and firing decisions, right? Like, we hire based on these and we fire based on these. People might think I'd say, like, get your pricing right or talk to people about financing or whatever. It's like, no. You start at the basic building blocks of success, and that starts with culture, right? And I think that a lot of people miss that. It's very easy to just jump in and say, all right, like, here's the service we provide or here's the product we provide. And if you don't start with culture, the mission, the vision, the core values, the why behind what you do, you're never going to succeed. At Barron, we train our managers that the first thing that you do when you come into a new team, whether you've been promoted or you've been hired in from the outside, and we try as much as we can to promote from within, we find that being a very successful practice. Establish a position of trust. That has to be the first thing that you do. So I'd encourage anyone out there that's growing a company, make sure their managers know that you have to have the trust of your team. Nothing else matters if you don't have the trust. Like, literally, it will all erode away. It's like building a house on sand. It will not work. You got to have trust. And then your team has to know the why. And again, that goes back to mission, vision, goes back to core values. They have to understand why that organization exists. Like, why are you doing what you do? Spiritual capital. It goes back to, again, a lot of these themes all tie back together, right? Then you have to, and we talked about this too, invest in tools and training. You have to give them the tools and training to succeed. And then the last thing that you do is you track their performance. I have had to let people go in my management team because they started with KPIs. They started with tracking. They didn't build trust. Their team didn't understand the why, and they did not train them right. And they just said, this is how I want you to perform. You are going to lose every single time if you start with tracking.
Boom. Did you know this is episode 41?
41.
Thank you, Brad, for coming on the show. And
thank you for having me.
We're kicking off this season with a bang.
Yeah.
Hopefully not a bang in somebody's furnace.
Yeah.
But if you do have a bang in if they're in their furnace, they can call you.
Well, in the next month, get your furnace serviced now. That might sound like a selfish plug, but get it serviced now. Don't wait till October 15th.
So it's not a bang.
Yes. So it runs smoothly all winter long. Now is a great time to do it because it's less expensive than in the wintertime. So,
and Brad's free for everybody servicing. He'll be out there on his own doing it.
Absolutely. I'm not very good at it. It's why I have better technicians doing that. But I do know how to, I play with fire when I service a furnace.
You know the risk, you know the reward.
Yeah. And the reward is not there. I send someone else out. So we're blessed with good team members.
Yes, you are. Well, thank you for kicking off. This is episode 1, season 6.
Cool.
41 episodes total.
Congrats,
and it's just getting awesome. More and like every episode is more and more and more fun. And so I just appreciate you sitting down and dealing with a few mostly fun questions, but some some tough questions. And I think it's important that people understand that we're all human and we're doing our best.
We are.
And just appreciate what your company does for this community.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate what you guys do too.
Cheers.
Building Bellingham is a community podcast produced by the Bellingham Real Estate Company. Our producers and audio editors are Taylor Beal and Tiffany Holden. Social media and video production are by Cooper Hansley and Taylor Beal.